Hey, this is Corey Barnes.
And this is Lisa Caperton, and you're listening to Her Turn to Talk. I want to talk to you about social anxiety.
Social anxiety, sure.
So doing this podcast, I'm like learning things about myself. Are you learning things about yourself at all?
Yes.
And I have noticed, like, I knew that I'm an introvert, and I might cry doing this. But the social anxiety thing is like really coming up, and it's so bizarre. The other day, maybe 2 nights ago, or the other night, you might have noticed you got an email from me at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, I could not sleep. And I was just like thinking. And I'm thinking about the podcast. I was thinking about things I've said. And then I had a dinner to go to last night with a very special woman in my life who's like a mentor and some other close friends. And I was so worked up about going that I was like about to throw up feeling. And I called her and I was just freaking out. And it was just so bizarre. And I've been finding myself, even just the social media aspect of not thinking about that as being socially interacting. And it's a lot more than I'm used to doing. And for listeners, we this is like our 9th or 10th interview to do this month. And so we kind of compacted and slammed ourselves this month because we wanted to take a little break, but we still wanted to publish things. And I think I'm learning that, maybe yes, I'm an introvert. Maybe some people might call it an outgoing introvert because when I'm around people, I can talk and do that. But on the inside, I'm totally freaking out. And last night, I noticed that with these women who I'm comfortable with, and I'm talking to them, and like my mind kept going blank, and I was sweaty, and I've been feeling like getting that feeling. And I noticed before we had a lot of podcast recordings, and then I started feeling that way. And so it's just this learning experience of being like, okay, like this is something that comes up for me. And I Googled symptoms for social anxiety. And I was like, oh yes, these are all me. And this fear of judgment, like you and I have this little event we're going to go to in a few weeks. And I am already so stressed out about it. And because it's like, I'm just thinking, what do I wear? What am I going to say? And how are people going to think? And I know like you have this logical part of your brain that is like, you can just, you do you, and it's going to be fine. And you don't have to be liked by people. But then there's that louder anxiety brain that is full, that won't be quiet. It's like this hamster wheel of all of these thoughts. And these thoughts of things that I've said on the podcast that I replay in my head. And then I have somebody tell me, in all good, helpfulness of, oh, I had somebody say, like, I'm not sure you sound like you. You say some pretty crazy stuff. And I thought, oh, I do. And why am I doing it? And then, you get in this hamster wheel of why did I say that? And why did I do this? And should I have done that? And I guess I just want to like talk about that because I know I'm not the only one who has this. And when I was talking to my friend, like I said, she's kind of a mentor and she helps me with a lot of stuff. And she was like, well, we knew this. Like, we knew that you kind of have this little bit of an introvertedness, this kind of social awkwardness, anxiety. But it was not something that I expected to be so much. And so overwhelming, and so it's just something that is like, oh, okay, there are wonderful things that can happen. And then there are things that come up that are, rear their ugly heads of, okay, that I need to work on that. And maybe I need to, figure out how to make that work while still being me and still doing the things I want to do. Does that make sense? I don't know. And I don't know if you're experiencing anything like that with this at all. Or not. Like, do you get that?
With the podcast, it's only happened once when I talked about my social media addiction, and it only pops up when I'm but I wouldn't call it social anxiety. It's more like I have these big ideas for the social media, and I want to execute them all, but that means a timeline and a schedule. And my life is already so full that I feel like it's very, very difficult to put any more into my schedule or onto my plate without moving something off. But no, the social anxiety I can't relate with.
And it's like emotionally draining.
Yeah, the anxiety in general. I found that connecting with others and sharing how we're feeling with others and not internalizing things when these fears and anxiety pop up. Because typically what's hiding underneath here is fear of not being good enough. There's more to it. In my life, there is anxiety disorders out there that I'm aware of. But that is not what I have. And so I connect with others and I try to get out of my own head as much as possible.
Right.
And when I do that, and when I am of service to others, the fear and anxiety is lifted.
I feel like there's a balance in there for me, though, that I got to figure out. Because it's not always the case for me. It's not always the case of connecting with others. There's very much I need, like it is a deep need, not to isolate, but to just be in quiet and to be alone. Because I get just emotionally drained of talking, just being around people. It's just, I don't know. And so it's just like kind of finding that balance. And I think that everybody's different, like you said. I don't know if you said that, but everybody is different and everybody has different needs, and it's figuring out what your need is. And I've just been thinking about that of trying to not keep up with, oh, well, I can't isolate and I need to go and be with this person or I need to do that or need to do this, and being like, no, like it's okay to be and say like, I need to just go for a hike by myself, or I just need somebody. I just need to sit in my house and not have to talk to anybody. It's this feeling of being on, and sometimes I just need a little more off, and that's something I've always known about myself.
And what I'm talking about is not connecting with people and being on.
Right.
I'm talking about connecting with people and not people pleasing, but helping someone else out that might be struggling today with something in their life, right?
Right.
Because I find that there's a lot of people that have much more bigger problems than I have, and my problems aren't really problems after all. And so there's this calming effect that happens when I work with those other people, and I'm not on. I'm just being Corey who's listening to this person, and I can almost go in my own little quiet place while I'm listening to this person, a quiet place of gratitude that will happen. And the part about being on when telling someone else about what's going on with me, so kind of the opposite, it's not that I'm on. I'm back again into this is what's going on in my head. I need to get it out.
Right. Well, and there is an importance. I do see, yes, there's an importance of all of that. But I think what I'm saying is like there's also an importance of like sometimes you just need that to be it's okay to be alone and not have to do that too all the time.
And being comfortable to be alone, being comfortable in your own skin, that's a whole process in itself, just as humans. And it takes a while. But just getting comfortable with just the things that the way they are. And allowing ourselves, giving ourselves permission to take time out, allowing ourselves to take breaks when they're needed. Yeah, that's important for our mental health and physical health. And what we're eating.
Right.
It's I hate to I don't hate to say it. It's a new thing that I've learned in drinking enough water. But that, like you said, that word balance, I really have no idea what the heck that is.
Right. Well, there's, we're all up and down every day, all day sometimes, or weeks, and, day by day. And yesterday, in the beginning of the day, like I said, I didn't sleep, and I talked to my friend, and I was like, I don't think I can come. Like, I was just going to shut down. I was done. And I talked to her, and we talked it out, and I went for a walk, and I spent some time alone, and I turned off everything and just kind of meditated and walked and kind of gave myself that space to kind of just regroup and calm down and get out of that high energy state. Yeah. And, thankfully it was a group of women, and my friend is like, you come and you stand next to me, and it's okay to say, I'm feeling very overwhelmed. I've been doing a lot of social stuff, and I'm going to be quiet tonight. And that was okay, and so I did it, and it was, and I didn't die, and it's still doing those things but I knew that if I didn't have to do it. It's not a have to do, but I wanted to be able to do it because I wanted to be there to support this person in a celebration that she was having.
And we're all going to have these days. Right. There's nothing wrong that you had a day like that.
Well, no.
Because you're exploring it and you're talking
and
about it.
And I've noticed, like I said, I know I got this way before. And so it's like, it's just, I'm learning new things about myself. And this is something that I've always known, but I don't think I knew how much of an issue it was, simply because I don't do a lot of social stuff normally. And I don't even just see people a whole lot. I work with dogs and cats, and I'm alone quite often. And then to all of a sudden go from having that kind of life to having a little bit, it's not even that social, but it was quite an uptake of being social and talking, and to add the social media aspect to it all at once was like, oh, it's almost this culture shock of just something new. And so it's like, oh, okay, I can take that feeling and appreciate it for what it is and learn from it, and then find my comfort zone in that. And I'll probably get that way again.
There will be other people that have gone through the same thing that you have gone through and are So there is tools out there.
Oh,
they're just waiting for you to.
And I know there's other people out there that have social anxiety and these things. And I think I wanted to talk about it a little because I feel like people hear that word and they think that it's one or the other. It's like, if you go outside, you're just completely going to be socially awkward if you're in a social situation.
What is that called when people are scared to leave their house?
Oh my gosh.
Something phobia?
Agoraphobia?
Agoraphobia.
Yeah, I think it's that. And
do you have that?
No, I don't. I can leave my house perfectly fine. It's just the thought of being around sometimes even a smaller group, but having to talk. No, and because I can wear my headphones and not have to, it's being in a place where I'm going to have to interact. I can go to the grocery store and not interact with people, right? And sometimes I can feel that way in my own house. My husband works from home. And so when I come home and he's there a lot, and he'll want to come and talk to me because he's not socially talking to anyone. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't talk to you right now. Like, that's just kind of what I need. I need that time. And I do have kids. And so when they get home, there's, I can't do that. I need to be there for them and talk to them. And yes, I can go take a bath or whatever. But I guess like the social anxiety part of, sometimes it's just not about that. It doesn't mean like you can't go out and beyond and talk to people and you seem fine. Like, it's like that whole thing of you don't know what's going on inside that other person's brain. And so maybe they look and sound just fine, but maybe they're acting nervous. And so it's just like, yeah, we're not alone in that. And that, I'm sure other people feel this way. And I'm sure other people out there probably have, jobs where they have to be quite social. And I'm sure it can be very uncomfortable, but that they're managing that. And so I don't know. It's just another little mental health thing that of like, hey, we're all here. We all have things and we all have issues, and let's not be afraid to talk about them, and let's get help for them if we need,
Yeah. I don't have more of a solution or
No, I mean,
contribution.
yeah. I mean, I have, I know what the solutions are, and to figure that out, and it's just more of like saying, for me, I guess, to say to you, like, this is kind of what's been coming up for me, and learning, and also just to say to listeners of, anybody else who feels this way too, like, we're not alone. Hi, I'm here too.
Yeah. Speaking of anxiety, you know what gives me anxiety? When my house is a mess
Me
and
too.
my laundry's not done. And I find that a clean house usually equals a clean mind. And that brings me to our badass woman of the week, Marie Kondo. If you know anything about Marie, you know about things that spark joy or don't spark joy in your life. Marie Kondo is a Japanese organizing consultant and author. Enchanted with organization since her childhood, Marie began her tidying consultant business as a 19-year-old university student in Tokyo. Today, Marie is a renowned tidying expert, helping people around the world to transform their cluttered homes into spaces of serenity and inspiration. In junior school, Kondo ran into the classroom to tidy up bookshelves while her classmates were playing in physical education class. Whenever there were nominations for class roles, she did not seek to be the class representative or the pet feeder. Instead, she yearned to be the bookshelf manager to continue to tidy up the books. She said she experienced a breakthrough in organizing one day. I was obsessed with what I could throw away. One day, I had a kind of nervous breakdown and fainted. I was unconscious for 2 hours. When I came to, I heard a mysterious voice, like some god of tidying, telling me to look at my things more closely. And I realized my mistake. I was only looking for things to throw out. What I should be doing is finding the things I want to keep, identifying the things that make you happy. That is the work of tidying. She spent 5 years as an attendant maiden at the Shinto shrine. She founded her organizing consulting business when she was 19 and a sociology student at Tokyo Women's Christian University. In her senior year, she wrote her capstone thesis titled Tidying Up as Seen from the Perspective of Gender. So most tidying methods advocate a room-by-room or little-by-little approach, which doom you to pick away at your piles of stuff forever. The KonMari method encourages tidying by category, not by location, beginning with clothes, then moving on to books, papers, kimono, or miscellaneous items, and finally sentimental items. Keep only those things that speak to the heart and discard items that no longer speak joy. Thank them for their service, then let them go. People around the world have been drawn to this philosophy not only due to its effectiveness, but because it places great importance on being mindful, introspective, and forward-looking. Marie says that her method is partly inspired by the Shinto religion. Cleaning and organizing things properly can be a spiritual practice in Shintoism, which is concerned with the energy or divine spirit of things, kami, and the right way to live, kanagara. Treasuring what you have, treating the objects you own as disposable, but valuable, no matter their actual monetary worth, and creating displays so you can value each individual object are all essentially Shinto ways of living. Marie has been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the London Times, Vogue, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, The Ellen Show, as well as on more than 50 major Japanese television and radio programs. Marie has written 4 books on organizing, which have collectively sold millions of copies around the world. Her books have been translated from Japanese into several languages, including Korean, Chinese, Spanish, Indonesian, Italian, French, German, Swedish, Portuguese, and English. In her #1 New York Times best-selling book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, Marie took tidying to a whole new level, teaching that if you properly simplify and organize your home once, you'll never have to do it again. This book has been published in more than 30 countries. In the United States and the United Kingdom, the profile of Marie Kondo and her methods were greatly promoted by the success of Netflix series Tidying Up with Marie Kondo, released in 2019, for which Marie was nominated for the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Host for a reality or competition program. She also has been named one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in the world. Marie is a true girl boss. Marie married her husband, Tankumi Kawara, in 2012. At the time they met, Kawara was working in sales support and marketing at a corporation in Osaka. Once Kondo's career took off, he left his job to become her manager and eventually the CEO of KonMari Media, LLC. The couple have 2 daughters, and they moved from Tokyo to San Francisco. As of 2019, she and her family live in Los Angeles, California.
Awesome. Where'd you learn all that?
MarieKondo.com and Wikipedia.
Awesome.
Kriste Peoples is the founder of the Black Women's Alliance of Denver, a runner, a writer, a professional speaker, a producer, and a nature enthusiast. Kriste empowered us with narratives of wellness and deep connection. Let's welcome her now.
Hi, Kriste.
Hi.
We are super excited to have you on the podcast today. Can you go ahead and just kind of introduce yourself to the people listening, your name and kind of what you do?
My name is Kriste Peoples, and I am by day a media producer, and I have the pleasure and privilege of working with lots of different spiritual teachers or wisdom teachers to help them create programs and products for learning and development and just, kind of cultivating a better way of being in the world. So I love that. And then on the side, or maybe I should say sides, I am a women's trail running coach. I lead lots of outdoor activities, hiking, contemplative walking, um, yeah, more trail running, just all kinds of different exploration. I'm really excited about that. I also do a fair amount of public speaking on the topics of women's empowerment and engagement in the outdoors and underrepresented communities and just expanding the narrative of like who gets to be outside and enjoy the outdoors. Yeah.
I love that. And I love that you said like who gets to be outside and be outdoors, and that should be everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really should be, but not everybody believes that. I think a lot of people have internalized beliefs, on either side of it. Who gets to be able to play, who gets to enjoy the mountains. Some people feel like, this space is solely for me. I grew up in it. My parents always took me out here. We were always camping and hiking and doing all the things. It's inherently mine.
Right.
And some people feel like it's not available to them, outdoor adventure because maybe historically it hasn't been a welcoming space. Maybe it has been kind of fraught with fear and painful experiences, if not by them directly, then maybe, they've witnessed it in the culture or extended family or just media representation too. So there are a lot of different layers to it. Yeah.
Right. It's kind of one of those things that gets passed down until somebody finally, and it sounds like that's what something that you're doing is like, wait a minute, it doesn't have to be that way anymore.
Yeah. And passed down again on all sides of it. Like
Yeah.
people would say to me, "Oh yeah, we grew up camping. Our parents would just throw stuff in the back of the car and we'd go out to the mountains, and I didn't really care about it so much when I was a kid, but I love it now. Yeah, it's so easy. It's a no-brainer. We do it all the time." And so I did not grow up with that experience. So, like you said, hey, wait a minute. It's not like that for everybody. And even though now I get it and I love it and I share that experience with other people, I understand people like me, not unlike me, who have not had that experience. I grew up in Virginia Beach, and we might throw a picnic basket and towels in the car and go hang out, at the beach. And so we didn't do the camping thing. We didn't do the mountain thing. There were no mountains
Right,
really
right.
involved. So it's a new experience in a lot of ways when you start to unpack, like, oh, wait a minute, it's not that everybody does it, even though maybe if you're in a group where you're the only one who hasn't done it,
Yeah.
maybe you're a little intimidated to
Right.
say, well, wait, how do I pick a tent? How do I put that up? Like, what is a tarp? And why
Right.
do I need one?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I love too, it can go through so many layers of maybe like where you came from, what shape you are, what size you are, what color you are, all of these different reasons of why you think you can't do something. And just being able to know that you can't, all you got to do is try. And I think sometimes it can also add a level of intimidation, being where we are in Boulder, and you've got all these superhuman beings out there doing crazy things, that adds another layer of intimidation to some people. I know for me, it kind of did. I grew up in Texas, and I was the same way. I'd never seen mountains really growing up at all. And then coming here, and you've got, I remember one of my first times being out on the trail, and I decided to try to trail run, and I didn't make it very far. But I remember this guy being like, "Oh, you should keep going. You should keep going." I'm like, I can't keep going. And
Yeah.
like, I'm seeing these people whizzing by, and you're like, oh, well, maybe I can't do it. But it's like, no,
Right.
you just got to try and just do a little bit at a time, and then you'll get there.
When you're working with all walks of life and you're sharing your experience, strength, and hope with being outdoors, what do you tell people are the benefits? Why should people be getting outside? What's behind that?
Uh,
And have you seen people transform once they start doing stuff?
yeah. Yes. Yes. Where do I begin with that question? I feel like one of the biggest transformations, if not the biggest, personally, has been for me. It has been my own transformation because, as you were saying earlier, you get out there on the trail, like if you're new, there's just this love or excitement for being in nature. And wait, where do I go? How does this work? And so add to that being in Boulder for me, where Boulder, I don't know the current statistics, but the people of color population is probably maybe 5%,
Right.
maybe.
Yeah. Right.
And so being out there, with elite athletes are just leaping and bounding all over the place. I'm like, okay, wait, is this a safe trail? What is entailed? Like, what is the terrain like? Do I have the right shoes? I can barely catch my breath because I came from relative sea level to be here. So there were all these different seeming, impediments to participation, right? And so being able to learn to ask the questions like, okay, who is offering training, or where are there groups where I feel like there's a sense of welcome to come in and do this stuff? That's a big thing too, because, there is this feeling, especially in our culture, of just do it, go get out there, be fearless, let your light shine. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I just want to know how to be safe and how to expand my sense of like enjoyment of nature. I'm not trying to be like Shira or maybe that's dating myself, but like Wonder Woman or whatever. I'm not trying to like do all that stuff. I just want to, have a great time and be safe, right? So learning more about that, getting certifications and, evolving into like different levels of experience and engagement has really helped to not only increase my sense of agency and empowerment in the outdoors, which has been a huge transformation, but I get to extend that love to other people. And we were talking earlier before coming on air about, my Instagram and how I'm out a lot with people and everything. And visuals matter, so people get to see me and see other people who look like me enjoying the mountains and being free in the wilderness and backcountry. And it extends a sense of invitation, a sense of belonging, a sense of adventure, all of that to people.
Yes.
And so I feel like that is contagious, and just creating a space where I can show up and say, hey, let's do this together. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to have this experience that, maybe the world or the culture might have you believe is inherent in you, like having the experience of camping or trail running or like being superhuman in the mountains.
Mhm.
Just show up with what you have as you are, and we can figure it out. And so there's been a huge ripple effect over the years,
bet.
just lighting that fire or that light of curiosity in others.
And to be just an all-encompassing woman in this whole world, like
Yeah.
immediately I was just drawn to you. Like I said, I couldn't wait to meet you. I was really excited. And and I love your outfits that you have too. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's colorful and beautiful and like goddess. I've been, like look at her out on those trails. I want to join her, and that's attractive. That's inviting, like you said. And I'm thinking, yeah, I want to get to know Kriste too. I want to be part of that too. I'm curious. Are you a spiritual person?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you find is there spirituality tied in with all of this?
Hubba. Wow. Yeah. Well, let me just say, like, that word is loaded. Like,
Oh, yeah.
religious or Christian or Muslim or any of that stuff. It's also loaded with our stuff, right?
Right.
My feeling when I say I'm spiritual, I say that means I don't necessarily adhere to a strict religious doctrine. I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church, and there are a lot
I
of
know all
things.
about that.
Right? And there's so much that I love about some of those traditions, community, family, taking care of each other, good food, and music. I mean, so much of that about bringing people together to really experience something that's greater than ourselves, and to have safe spaces or these containers for transformation and for really letting go of these kind of the burdens of life and emerging anew in a way, right? And so for me, if extracting some of that into my daily life, that's my spirituality. That's my practice. I seek that in whatever I'm doing. And so being in nature, like aside from what science tells us these days, which is that being in nature helps to lower our cortisol or stress hormones, or it helps to balance out helps to like kind of lower anxiety and raise the good stuff. And we get to carry that feeling with us when we leave the mountains, like, right? Like, I don't, we can Google the studies and all the
Right.
numbers and stuff. But being able to go into these open spaces and have a sense of wonder and a sense of, wow, I'm really small. Like my petty concerns, my jealousy, my bitterness, my muffin top from the holidays, or just because that stuff doesn't matter, because what I need right now is to move my body, and I'm so grateful. Look at what my arms and legs and my feet can do. They're carrying me over these rocks. They're carrying me to this summit. They are really supporting me, and that's huge. When you feel like, this has probably never happened to you guys, but like for me, sometimes I can feel ungrounded and just sort of up in the air or all at sea or whatever, the elemental metaphor you want to use there is. And going into the mountains or being able to like exert myself, on the trails just really feels like a sort of coming home, and I am literally supported by the earth under my feet. I get to just be one with what really matters right then. Well, I gotta watch where my feet go or else I'm gonna bust it,
Right.
I gotta breathe. I gotta be able to really take in those breaths. So, because
Mm.
like when I'm stressed out, I notice for me, I am breathing shallowly, if at all,
Yep.
and I am clenching. And so when you're out on the trail, you can't really be clenched and not breathing. It doesn't work. And so all of that goes into creating a deeper sense of not only calm for me at the end of it all, right? But also a greater awareness of, you know what? These so-called problems have been right-sized. They're
Mm.
not so
Mm-hmm.
big anymore. I feel like I'm part of something greater here. And I almost feel as though the trees, the earth has kind of absorbed and transformed that feeling of pain or alienation or whatever it is that I go in there with.
I love
You
that.
speak my
There's,
language.
I know. I'm just sitting here thinking, and it's so humbling to be out there on the
Yeah.
trail. And as you're telling the story, I'm thinking back. Corey and I have done some backpacking, and once we did like a girls' backpacking trip. It was really beautiful, and I miss it so much. But it was very difficult. The
Mhm.
first half of our trip was up in Rocky Mountain National Park. It was freezing cold. It rained and misted. It was like misting fog. Like we couldn't even see any. We couldn't see the mountain. Like what was around us. It was all just fog,
Mm.
and that meditative process that happens of
Yeah.
like we're out here and we're doing this, and like you said, it's like we're not thinking about who's posting what on social media. I'm
Mhm.
at the time wasn't thinking about like, are my kids making a mess at my house right now? It's like it's just you're out there and you have to focus on like what's the next thing I got to do to keep moving. And there's
Mhm.
something so humbling and so freeing about that, and it doesn't matter. I don't think it has to be, you don't have to be backpacking. You don't have to be running.
Mhm.
You could just be out on one of the open, like it doesn't even have to be on
Yeah.
the mountain, just on the
Yeah.
open space trail and just being like, oh, okay, I'm just going to watch my feet. Let me
Mhm.
be where my feet are right now. And how freeing is that? And how wonderful it is that I love what you're doing and about putting that word out there that it can be inclusive and like, hey, this is out there and it doesn't matter what community. I'm thinking back of my home in Texas, and there are plenty of like little trail. You can just go run on a little, find a little park,
Mhm.
anything. It's just being outside and being in nature and like being present of where we are. And how often do we forget to do that these days?
Right. And I mean, and just sitting outside, we are really spoiled in a lot of ways where we live because we can sit down with a mug of tea outside at a
Mm-hmm.
cafe or something and look up at the mountains and we can take in the fresh air. And
Mm.
I mean, there's so much that has to happen for us to be able to do that. Talk about,
Right.
you
Right.
know, privilege,
Right.
that we
Right.
have to be able to experience that.
Yeah.
And so for people who don't necessarily live near the mountains or maybe aren't so mobile or whatever, being outdoors, just sitting on a bench by the water, just
Mm-hmm.
listening to the sounds or taking it in however we might. House plants. That's another way of, we can bring nature and the outdoors into us,
Oh,
so
I
that
love that.
this is
Yeah.
this is part of just expanding the sense of like access to nature. It's one. I mean, my thing, and I think what we three share in common is like that we love being in such close proximity to the mountains, and we take advantage of going out there when we can. But the greater piece of that is that it exists within us too. It exists this spirit of connecting with something higher and being able to kind of expand into that energy from wherever we are. That's huge.
Yes.
And so, for people who have a different sort of access to nature, maybe that is like
Right.
houseplants. Maybe that is nature music. Maybe it's something entirely different, but I think that really central piece is that it's something that's pulsing through all of us, and putting ourselves in spaces where we can kind of harmonize with that. Okay, I'm going into the woo-woo a little
No,
bit.
go.
Just
Yes,
like
bring us to the vortex.
Yes, we are
Bring us to the
following you.
But
We're in it. We're already in it.
It's too late. No turning back. Yeah. But I mean, there is something that we share. It's a current that we can feel and connect into. Like I feel it now, and we're sitting we're sitting indoors talking behind microphones.
Right.
And we just met.
And we just met.
I love that.
Yeah.
We just met. But did we really just
Ooh,
meet
yes.
in the bigger picture? All right, now let's stop.
I love it.
You have connections with the Shambhala Center. Do you work there? Do you hang out
I-
there? What do you do there?
I do not work there, but I work with teachers some of whose work has been published there.
Ah.
I am also a meditation teacher in training. And so there are a lot of like cross currents and connections that happen with that too.
Ah.
So yeah.
Could
What do
you
you
tell
do?
us
Yeah,
about
the training.
your meditation training and what that looks like and then what it entails?
Yeah. So I am, I think, a kinesthetic learner or maybe experiential learner, right? Like the more I do, the more I learn. And so teaching helps me reinforce that. And so when I'm learning something, I'm sharing it as I go. So it's this constant cycle. And so I had been doing a bit of like, occasional meditation here and there for the past few years. And then it's like, oh yeah, I really need to meditate because I'm feeling stressed out, but I don't really have the time. And that whole
Are
thing.
you talking about like laying down on the floor meditation, close your eyes, or what kind of meditation are you talking about?
Yes.
All of it.
So fundamentally, I'm talking about sitting meditation, like breath meditation, right? Just sitting, breathing, being still. And so I would do that kind of indiscriminately over the past few years. And then this program came up for mindfulness meditation teacher training led by the two people who are really big pioneers in the field and personal favorites of mine, Jack Kornfield and Tara Brock. And so this program is 2 years. I'm in my second year, which is the practicum
Wow,
year
it's
of
2
teaching.
years.
Yeah, this is
Real deal.
kicked my whoever thought. I didn't think. See, this is me
Right.
being naive, going right in. I'm like, oh, meditation, calm, soothing. I can use that in my life. So naive. And to also call oneself a meditation teacher, that's a whole nother thing that I'm not even going to get into, but whatever. So, I mean, it really kicked my ass because when you sit down or you lie down in meditation or you do anything meditatively, which is turning the focus inward.
It's hard.
Right. Right. You're
You can't
seeing,
sit still.
yeah, and you're seeing all those little cubbies where you've put your shit, and like
You're like face to face. Here it is.
And the thoughts are flying by.
That's right. And like you said, you can't sit still.
Yeah.
And you, meaning me, you want to run, you want to just go back to bed. It's really something, meeting yourself. Whew. And so self-compassion is not, it is more than a notion, being gentle with yourself as you learn to just be with, if not process your stuff. Whew. Yeah.
So
That's
they
hard,
take
yeah.
you through. Are they taking you through a whole journey of processing your own stuff?
Yeah. Well, it's more like providing the resources and tools. It's like with anything that we learn, right? We're really getting information and tools. It all depends on how we use it, right, for ourselves and in the world. That determines like the mark of a good teacher, or how much we know, how much of the teaching can we like really internalize and make of and extend in a way of that's of benefit to people, much less ourselves. And so we have to do it ourselves. And so yeah, it's not that they're taking us through, okay, this week you're going to learn how to handle your generational pain. What? No, it's
Oh my God, right?
I know, right? It's exactly. So part of the teaching, come back to your breath. That's the thing that we can always do in the moment. Come back to our breath. Because again, you can Google this too. Like breathing helps us to regulate our nervous system. And it helps to take us out of that flight or fight mode, which is where I find it easy to go when I don't want to look at something that's less than flattering about myself. I can point my finger and blame or whatever. However, breathing, coming back to the breath, being still, helps us look at this stuff that triggers us in a way so that it's not so in our face. We can get a little bit of distance and look. And maybe with extended practice, with some self-compassion and safety for ourselves, we can look at it in non-judgment. And here's like the ninja level of it. We can learn what information it has for us, right? This thing that triggers us, because it's coming up to say, hey, and once we can turn toward it and say, oh my gosh, I am triggered up because I'm feeling this thing that has nothing to do with that incident, but everything to do with childhood or that big loss or upset in the past.
Yeah. And
okay.
I'm hearing the power of pause versus not reacting, right? We're coming inward, we're pausing, we're breathing. Because we all know what happens when we react out of not, and those things, maybe there's layers behind that's the reason why we're reacting. It has nothing to do with that person or whatever the heck is going on.
Right.
Yeah, it's almost like facing those childhood survival skills that we thought we needed that now as an adult that we're still carrying. And we're like, wait a minute, I don't need to do that anymore. I'm safe now, or I'm this now, and that doesn't need to serve me anymore. So and it's so hard because then it's like you said, you get these tools of teaching yourself how to, or having someone help work through it. It doesn't happen instantly. We got to slowly start making these small changes and retraining our brain and our thought processes.
Yes.
And I love, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just absolutely love that you're sitting here and telling us this, because it makes me so happy to know that you're doing that. Because what a gift that you've done this work for yourself. Because how else would you be expected to help guide somebody else through something like that if you haven't experienced it yourself?
Well, you know what? I think that, oh my gosh, these questions are so big, and there's limited time.
Well, I'm telling you, you're already one of those people in that chair that I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to have her back. I could talk to her for 2 hours.
I know. I'm like checking. I'm like, okay, I know what I'm going to say. Chime in here, chime in there. Yep,
Well, it's like, yeah, you go through these processes yourself, but this is lifelong. I mean, this is
no goal end point here.
Right. I mean, I'm going to get a piece of paper at the end of this, but I will have barely just begun. You know what I mean? And so every week in our, training group, and pretty much every day, I'm like, how am I supposed to be a teacher? This stuff is, I am triggered up right now. Like, I can't embody this stuff because I'm triggered up and I can't breathe, But I mean, I think that's just part of like the ebb and flow, right?
Yeah.
Like we learn, hopefully, by doing and experiencing, we regress and we go a little further and we come back. And I think that's part of the self-compassion journey,
Yeah.
if we really can be forgiving, if we can be gentle with ourselves, not to let ourselves off the hook, because maybe we messed up and did some wrong things. I mean, of course we have, right?
Right.
But just giving ourselves permission to be human.
Yeah.
Because as women who are doing things, right, we are constantly thinking about the next thing or the next relationship or how we can leverage this or that or whatever. And then we sit on the couch and we have we have the like chip dust falling into our cleavage because we haven't moved all day and we're just snacking. We're really guilty. We feel guilty, or we feel like, oh my gosh, we've lost that time. And I'm making assumptions. I will say that for myself.
I
Oh
kinda
no,
like
I
that,
can relate.
or,
Yep.
or when I
Maybe
see
it's not chip dust. Sometimes it's cookie dust.
or hummus.
That's right. Falling. And I say falling into the cleavage because I'm usually like flat out. I'm not sitting upright so it can fall into the lap. But that happens too. and it's like, I might see, and who knows when this stuff can overtake us, like, oh, this person has 800,000 followers on Instagram, or they have this deal, or they have that acknowledgement, or whatever. Like, why not me? Or I wake up and I have a thought of the thing that I didn't do, or the one that got away because I didn't have the tools to allow myself to be vulnerable. Oh my God, you guys don't know. Oh.
Right. And I find the more
Yeah.
humans I hang out with, the more people I hang out with
Mm-hmm.
in person,
Mm-hmm.
face to face, the more I learn that
Mhm.
we're so much the same, no matter what the heck is going on. We had a woman we were talking to yesterday has cystic fibrosis, a disease for life. And I mean, we had so much in common, and you would look at
Yeah.
her, you'd never know. And so I find that the more we connect, the
Right.
more, let's go on a hike, let's start a meetup group, let's,
Right.
oh, I'm going to try some, meditation class. I'm going to go walk the labyrinth. The more people I
Mhm.
meet. Last night I went to a game night. I didn't know anybody there. It was so fun. I'll talk about that later. But I can relate.
Yeah.
I start to be more gentle with myself.
Yeah.
The compassion for others then also gets reflected back on myself. And something happens where bringing it back to that unity and that idea of being one, and that we're all here, and that pulsing thing,
Mm-hmm.
that's what brings me back.
Yeah.
And it's so neat. And
Yeah.
it's so refreshing to hear, like, what a breath of fresh air to hear you,
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, she's in my head already,
Yeah. Yeah.
And go ahead.
No.
I wanted to ask. So you are working on this meditation teacher training.
Yes.
What other, I know you have some more. What other certifications and training do you have?
So I have my wilderness. So I have, the CPR, wilderness first aid training.
I saw
and
that.
oh yeah,
A picture of
that
it.
one.
This is something very valuable to know.
Well, it is very valuable. It's so interesting because we were 10 days in the backcountry learning how to address emergencies that couldn't be addressed if that would otherwise be handled by EMTs or the urgent care or whatever, if you were close to those resources, right, in the front country. Right. So backcountry, at least relative to this certification, means it's like you're 2 years. No, scratch that. You're 2 hours or more
Right.
away
Yeah.
from, higher care or whatever. And so they brought in some actors who would just come in yelling and bloody and help my friend I gotta tell you this one story. Okay. Help my friend. He's fallen out by the lake. He's not breathing. Help somebody, and that person is like all like blotchy skin and like red faced and panting hard. And so we had set up an emergency room, at the center of our location there in the during this backcountry training, ready to like put all that we knew, bring everything to bear on these emergencies that erupted like from out of nowhere. So anyway, we have like two major response teams that are going out, and I'm supposed to be managing, the whole process of like dispatch, like who goes where and all that stuff. I got the walkie-talkie, I got my clipboard and my Sharpies, and I am ready.
You're like triaging, like you go here, you go here.
Absolutely. And so the team runs out before I can say anything because we're all on high alert. Now, for anybody listening, okay, although this was mayhem, it did work out in the end. So I don't want you to be nervous if you go out with me. But anyway, they ran out toward the water, and they're starting to run. And so my trail running part of me, I'm like, oh my God, why are they running? These people aren't all runners. And even if they are, what if somebody turns an ankle? Then that turns into another emergency.
Exactly.
And then we don't know how far out the wounded person is. What are you doing? You gotta walk. It's okay. Those few seconds difference it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and it might be worse if you try to run the whole way there. You're carrying this stretcher and you're carrying backpacks worth of stuff, whatever.
Can only imagine.
So they get to the place, and this person, this actor, is there in the weeds by the water, and meanwhile, they didn't realize that they had turned over like a beehive or something.
Oh no!
And so one of my peers runs back and is covered in actual bee stings.
Oh
my
Like
gosh.
at least half a dozen or more.
Oh no.
She has just been stung up one side and down the other, trying to run out there. So then it did come to like, oh wow, what do we do?
Wow.
So anyway, I've been like led far astray from like the initial question.
No, this is
But the thing-
fantastic. I love it. This is what happens, right?
The
I love
movie's
these
playing in my
chats.
head right now. Of this.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Poor thing. So was she
right.
like down and out? Like she was no longer, she couldn't help anymore, right? Or somebody needs to help her.
Yeah, it took a while. So we had to get like the sting kit and all that stuff and check her over and, do all the stuff
Thank
with
goodness
her.
she wasn't allergic.
Well, then there was another woman who went she was like deathly, allergic to bee stings. She was also in this crew that ran out. And so she came back and had to have a shot of epinephrine.
Oh no.
Yeah. And so we had to, find her EpiPen and sit her down on the side. So we're down like two medics, because of this simulated exercise that turned into a real emergency.
Oh my god.
And so it's like, wow, how do I keep this training alive and that sense of clarity in an emergency, in a real high crisis situation? It's been really interesting to look around like in my daily life, and I see, that thing's hanging, somebody could break their neck from that. There's a twisted ankle waiting to happen there. There's a burn like on the horizon because, this thing is unattended or whatever. So it's like, it's opened up a very different world that I hadn't really considered before.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That it makes you think of the calm, the eye of the hurricane,
Mm-hmm.
or serenity amidst calamity,
Mm-hmm.
and then practicing it out in the daily life,
Yeah.
practicing it in all our affairs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool.
And like having our responses or our choices narrowed down to like one or two, like I got that. I'm so down with that. Like, okay, if we're gonna live, we have to do this. You there, this now.
Yes.
Make it happen. But then sometimes if I am left with an array of choices or responses, that's a real opportunity to focus and narrow in a way that I sometimes find that challenging. I'll be honest. Ooh.
It is. I love in one of our questions, we asked about like things that you have done in the past, and seeing all of these different things that you have done and what we've learned talking to women and from our own experiences in life, that none of us have this linear path necessarily, or most of us don't. Maybe some people do. I haven't ran across anyone who has yet, but you've done many different things. Can you tell us, one of those being a jazz singer, which I love, can you tell us like kind of what led you down this path to where you are now?
Yeah. Well, so at one point I wanted to sing. And because I like grew up singing, and I love, like, I'm a ham, you know. And so I'm ham and cheese. Right. So
I like me
I
some
love
ham
it.
and cheese.
Okay. There are worse things. So I wanted to sing. I was in New York, where you can just kind of, I felt like it was a chapter where I could just explore and do and become, and so one of the things I wanted to become was a singer. So I got a band together, and we went around doing the gigs and all that stuff, and it was a lot of fun. And then I stopped because I was like, okay, it's time to like get a job and figure out like a career. I work, eating, paying bills. And then when I just kind of lowered the boom on that, it felt like I had like lopped off an appendage or something. So then I like opened it up again and just did a little bit here and there. I mean, I wasn't touring, but I was like working around New York City, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so then, like, it felt like more pain than anything to say, oh, I've given up on that. I'm just not doing that anymore. And then when I started, allowing myself to, again, like self compassion, that I didn't really I didn't know that was a thing at the time, but I was like, I'm going to give myself a break. I'll do it here and there and whatever, and we'll see. And interestingly enough, even though I don't do that anymore, what has translated from that is an understanding of how to work with people, how to speak, how to be in a room and share an idea and connect with people, how to really tease out a story. And so I would never have thought that in the days where I felt like, oh, I'm never going to be a singer, or this is dead end or whatever. Now I'm so grateful to have had that experience, because it was a training that I didn't even know was happening at the time. I just thought, oh my gosh, I got to pay the band, and there are only two people in the audience. Like, what? How? But I mean, and also to be able to laugh at myself and laugh with myself and with other people. And, it's just been a really rich experience. So, okay. So I moved into publishing. Just I've always been interested in some form of publishing, and like I've been on the designing end of it, the writing end of it, and now I'm on the content creation side of things. And I think the transition has been, again, one that is following my natural interests or my natural inclinations. And so I could have gone the book route and become an editor, which who knows, down the road, whatever. But I really appreciated the opportunities to work directly with teachers, like in the studio, and to help them shape their programming, and to ask them questions, and to tease out their stories and their materials in ways that would make for an engaging experience for people on the listening end of what they're sharing, and we talked about learning by doing, or by internalizing the material. And sure enough, when these programs come up, I am automatically thrown into learning what their methodology is, or what their practices are, because not only are they recording them in the studio and I'm sitting there with them, but I also have to go back and edit it and write about it and talk about it in meetings. And so some of it is really inconvenient because it rips back the curtain when, hey, I'm just trying to do my job.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't want to be going through my wounds and weeping at work
Yeah.
because this powerful teaching has like stuck me in the gut.
or
And
maybe even disagree with something that somebody might.
yeah, that too.
It's
And
hard.
yeah, and you know what? I think like a lot of teachers, we teach what we want to learn, or we teach from the wounded place sometimes in order to get that healing, and that is helpful for a lot of people because they can see this teacher going through it, getting the medicine as they get it almost, But I mean, some of these people, whoa, ho, ho, mama. And again, it just it helps you have a better sense of, oh wow, like you said, wow, I can appreciate that we're all going through something, that we all have struggles, and we're just showing up. Even if we're not doing our best, we're doing something.
Right.
Like
Our best in the moment, right?
and yeah, right. And our best in the moment sometimes is shitty behavior.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
Like that's the
Absolutely.
best. Yeah. Sometimes we just can't do any better.
Yep.
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 Which brings new meaning to it doesn't get any better
Oh,
than
yes.
this. Right?
I
Like
know. I call those do no harm days. I just keep to myself. Consoling my mentor.
That's right. That's right.
But it passes, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Typically.
Yeah.
We learn from it. Sorry, Lisa.
No, it's all right. I just wanted to get. I feel like we need more time. Somebody give us more time. But did you? So you do professional speaking as well,
Yes.
and was that an accidental thing?
No.
Or did you seek out to be a professional speaker?
Well, okay. So there's one thing about doing professional speaking and being a professional speaker.
Okay,
Right?
okay.
Like, well, maybe. So I'm professional when I go out and speak, but that is not my career.
Okay.
However, I feel like everything I do, I am fortunate to do because I just love it and I pursue my interests, And that speaking piece grew out of taking people out on trails and sharing stories about, different experiences on the trail or different capacities that we can open up by being in nature and all that. And so, one person who had been with me on a hike said, "Oh, I'd love for you to come talk to my group." And then somebody else, and then somebody else. And then, that had been speaking a lot about, engagement in the outdoors and underrepresented communities and why you don't see us out there and all that kind of stuff. And then there had also been talks around women's empowerment. And so, somebody would ask me to come speak about that stuff. And so that's how it built. And then I got a message one day from a woman who said, "We'd love for you to come talk at the Women's March in Denver." And I was like, "What? How did you, what? Okay, yes." And so interestingly enough, like the year before, I had been on a panel 2 years prior to Women's March with this woman and who was great. And we had a real nice rapport. She reached out to me the following spring and said, "I want you to be part of this speaking thing that we're doing. It's for entrepreneurial women who are doing X, Y, and Z." I'm like, "But I'm not a coach. I don't have a business. I'm okay, but yes." And she's like, "There might be 300 people there." And so I said yes, because I was a little nervous and it made me scared in like all the right ways. And so I went and turned out there were 400. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, all right. I did it. That's great. I stretched my comfort zone. It was, well received or whatever. And then the following year, when I was invited to speak at the Women's March, I was told, "Okay, we're expecting 4,000 people." And I said, "Okay, yes, all right. Who? Okay." And so turns out there were 250,000 people that day because it was the inaugural one that was a
Yeah.
record-breaking thing. And so I felt like I was saying yes to that person that I wanted to, the Kriste that I wanted to become. And the bigger thing about that too was that it wasn't, I had to let go of any idea that, oh, it's just happenstance or they need a warm body to show up. It's just me. I mean, and sometimes like we do this as women,
Yeah,
right? Like
absolutely.
we are like multifaceted, multi-talented, and just because certain things come easily to us, we say, "Oh, that's nothing to see here, no big thing. Oh, don't, oh, you're too much. What? Just stop." And then the other side of that, like right around the bend, is I want to be seen and shine, and I want to be known for my true self and all that. Well, you just negated your shine by saying, "Oh, there's nothing to see here." Yeah, there is. It's your fucking shine.
Yeah, I
Like,
love
what are you
it.
talking about? And so it's tricky
Yeah.
because excuse me. That's why I have, if you haven't noticed by now, I take issue with shine your light, because shining is it's a hard journey, right? Especially if that light causes other people to like be blinded by it, right? It's very inconvenient. It can be painful. It can sever a lot of relationships. It can set you on a scary trajectory that you can't even see beyond the next two steps. This is the light. Like you're driving at night, you can't see the whole way. You just see a little bit by the light, And so if we give ourselves to that, it really sets us on an entirely different path. And it is not to be taken lightly. And so I just hear this thrown around so much. Find your tribe, shine your light, be unapologetic. Sometimes we have to apologize for things because we fuck up.
Right.
Right. So we're that's one model, like being unapologetic and bold and fearless and all that stuff. It's like, you know what? Going a new route is scary, and sometimes we can be afraid. It's okay. Be afraid, be trembling, be halting, be changing your mind, but keep going. Like that's okay. It's okay. You don't have to fucking be Xena to like live your dream.
I love that. I love it. And I love what you say about
the
being,
truth.
being inconvenient for other people.
It is.
We hear all that, I've heard, like, I know from myself and changing myself, and I've been told when people around me react to these new changes I'm making, and they may or may not act supportingly or not, but you know what? I also got to give them a little compassion of being like, I've set this stage. I've given them a rule book for how I'm going to live my life and how it's okay to treat me. And then all of a sudden I'm like, no, fuck that. I'm going to change that. Here are my new set of rules. And I can't just expect them to be okay with that. I got to teach them the new set of rules.
Right.
And that's hard. And I love that you say that. Like, the change is hard and it's okay.
That's right. And these are, I'm going to use my air quotes that you can't see. These are the problems that you want to have. We forget that too. Like when it gets hard after we've like stepped onto this new path, like I'm alone and it's cold here, Well, wait a minute. I landed that new job. I went forward and I went to that next level in my relationship. Like this is the problem that I wanted to have. I didn't think about that when I was doing that vision board and chanting over it and sprinkling all my, sage on it and stuff. But here it is. This is what we got.
And what I found is that when we do that, right, exactly what you're talking about, then I'm like, is this even a problem at all?
Right.
Considering other things that are going on in the world with other people, that's not a problem. Right. And oh man, I got my first loving bitch slap over that one. And I was like, I guess I don't have a problem.
Yeah. Right. It depends, I think, how much what we're seeing reflected around us at the time when we're in those moments, right?
Perspective is like,
it's everything, right? Because you show up to your relationships differently and you've got boundaries now. wait a minute, Lisa, you were supposed to be doing this, and but you always pick up after me, but you always take care of my emotional messes. Like, I don't like this change. And so that means that then that person that you've given this new rule book to can throw it in the trash and like walk away. Like these are the chances that we take.
Right.
Like really dismantling these long-term these relationships that have become comfortable, which is a whole nother thing to put on your plate. Like, okay, I'm shining. I'm out here in the dark and I'm shining. And my relationships the wheels are starting to fall off some of these relationships. What does this mean then? You know?
Right.
So these are like lots of considerations that we don't, that don't get covered when, you know, some people are like barreling through saying, go for it and damn the walls and all that kind of stuff. Like
Right.
Growth.
Right.
It's all growth.
it's growth.
Growth,
It's huge.
Pain is the touchstone to growth.
I love it. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate too the fact of, yes, and sometimes we fuck up and we got to take our responsibility, because I think that can get lost too when you're out there shining our lights and doing all this and making our changes, and we forget that we're human. And so we're going to fuck up sometimes, and we still need to be held accountable and be responsible for that.
Yeah.
And I do that not constantly anymore, thank God, but still sometimes, especially as a mom, I do that. And I got to tell you, it's very humbling to go back to my 11-year-old and be like, you know what? I just lost it on you, and that I behaved very poorly, and that was not who I want to be anymore. And like, I gotta, like, my kids for me are my biggest teacher. I get to practice all of these things that you just talked about with them, because I could change the rule books on them all the time if they as they're growing up and they're not going anywhere, but not yet anyways. They still need me, but I'm like, oh no, wait, you got to do your own laundry now, or you got to do this now, or you got to go clean up your own pee on the toilet seat. You know, just great practice for me out in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. It changes everything, because we get to the other piece too is that even while we're shining and in this process of change, we never really do anything alone, right? Like we have our vision, we can take our steps, and there are other people around to support, you know, and to be sounding boards for, and or you know, to be listening to us and to be helping to give feedback on how we're doing. And so I feel really committed to not only the idea but the experience of going together. There's a saying, you want to go fast, go alone, right? You want to go far, you go together. And so this is always that, like, you know, process of like navigation, because you still want to, you know, you're holding your vision, you're moving forward. Your relationships are, you know, our relationships are also dynamic and changing. And so then there's also like, okay, how do my circles need to also change as a result? What's going to support or be a safe container for this new experience of growth? Yeah, talk about the wilderness. I mean,
Yes.
some wild stuff.
Right? The mental wilderness. I don't even know. We'll come up with something for that, because we could get real smart about it. Do we have to wrap up? I got one more question.
Go, yes. We
I'm
can
on the
do what the hell
Shambhala
we want. It's our
Mountain.
podcast.
I know. We got a few more minutes. I'm on the Shambhala Mountain Center, and I just caught a little while ago. You're the founder of the Black Women's Alliance of Denver? You're the founder?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's like a big deal.
Well,
When did you found it? What's it all about? How many people are there now? Tell me.
Yeah.
That's badass.
So, yes, Shambhala Center was doing a retreat there last year
Must
with
be
the
your
group of
intro or
women. That's
something,
what that
right?
was. That's what that was. Yeah. So like, wait, where did Shambhala Center come from? That's where okay, I'm back. So, I moved to Colorado in 2009, and I did not see any people who look like me, especially women. I was just like, where, you know, and so it's almost like, I don't have kids, but I have friends who have babies. And so like sometimes when I go spend time with them, they're like, "Buh, buh, 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 buh." I'm like, oh, you haven't spoken to an adult today yet, right? Like, and so I felt like that when I would see Black people or Black women in Boulder, like, "Buh, buh, 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 buh," trying not to be awkward, but like, yeah. So I started out by saying, okay, I can't be the only person out here in the outdoors who is also interested in building community and finding resonance just around being among the only ones, like in our individual circles, right? So it's really important to be able to see yourself reflected in like a safe space where you can share things that
Yeah.
maybe you couldn't share in other spaces that are relatively safe for the things that you're interested in, right? Like, I was going to a lot of women's empowerment meetings and circles and gatherings, and I would often be the only one of color there. And I was like, oh, wait, we need this too. We need to like be able to talk about like microaggressions at work and like hair stuff and all the just different things that don't really have space, that don't really have a platform, even in other groups that feel supportive. So anyway, by this time I had moved to Denver, and I just put out an invitation like, hey, come join me on the trail, or oh, there's this Black woman who has this small business or this practice. Do you want to come do a workshop for us? Because you'll have an audience of people who are not only interested in your stuff, but also look like you, and you can get feedback, and you can test out your ideas and your products and programs in a safe space. And so it was like, so I was doing a bunch of that for a while, just like doing lots of different workshops, engaging the interest. And so it has shifted in shape over the years. So I'd say like, in earnest, I put the group together in 2014, and then now it has evolved into like a wellness concern, like a social group of women who are interested in doing things that focus around wellness, like being outside together, having an outer adventure, or meditation, or yoga, like body positive yoga. Because again, like another thing that people don't always consider is that there is a certain level of unsafety sometimes that can occur, like in a space, like even a yoga class.
Right.
Oh, my body is very different, or I'm feeling that because I'm the only one, there's a certain expectation of me here. It's so nuanced, and goes right under the radar so much. But when we are able to connect in safe spaces that are centered around well-being, it again trickles out into all that other stuff that we're involved in. So basically that's what it is. It's a women's social group. And so we have exclusive events and gatherings, and inclusive. So exclusive would be exclusively Black women oriented, and inclusive would be everybody who is also interested in well-being and women's wellness for the most part.
Yeah.
So
Lots of participants?
Yeah. That's relative.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Just
the group
about
is
what's going on.
about, I'd say overall there are about 1,200 women who are
That's incredible.
You
started that. You started that. That's incredible. It makes me want to cry.
It's just
1,200 people.
Well, those 1,200 aren't at everything.
Yeah.
But
know,
but they're
still.
aware. They're aware. And so they're
But
also
they're 1,200 people whose lives you touched in a special way. Nope. Give yourself that
Shine, girl, shine.
shining.
Just give yourself that credit.
I mean, that blows my mind, because I get these ideas. Like, I want to start a women's group, that we do this and that. And when you hear of something like this and it's successful and it's meaningful, that's like, the women empowering women thing.
Yeah.
Supporting
And the
women,
diversity
inspiring
thing.
women.
I love that. And because it is, and it's a very needed here where we are in this bubble. And I really, like, when we moved here from Texas, it was very much more diverse. And we came here, I was like, where are all the people of color? Like,
Right.
there's no, like, we have one person of color at my child, like in my child's class. And that was not how it was in Texas. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. How do I want my children to know about everybody? You know, and like, so how do I teach them that if they're in this bubble?
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. So I love that you're doing that. And I love that you have inclusive and exclusive. And that's a beautiful thing.
It's so important because, you know, as we were sharing before, we're all so much more alike, or in our interests and our desire to share in this connection. At the same time, it's very important to like fortify our own well-being and sense of inner safety before we can even give that out to an extended,
Absolutely.
you know,
Right. And to be able to teach
family.
each other and to share cultures and,
Right.
you know, and to share our differences.
Yeah.
And like learn from them and embrace them and all of those things. It's like, yeah, you have to have a safe space to do that on your own first before you can project that to other people.
And to be able to meet each other in the moment and not from this filter or perspective of our past wounding,
Yeah.
right? Or our assumptions.
And if people want to learn more about your the Black Women's Alliance, where can they find more information?
Well, so there's Black Women's Alliance on Facebook. We're also on Meetup. And I'm also going to add a page about it on my website, which is KristePeoples.com.
Great. And that's where people can find out more about you, KristePeoples.com. Can they check out your Instagram too?
If they want.
I guess there's a link on the website, but it's at Kriste Peoples on Instagram, and her Instagram is beautiful. Her website is beautiful. I highly recommend listeners go check Kriste out. She's fantastic. She's fun. I want to hang out with you.
Yeah, I want you to
Links will be on
I don't
our
want you to
website.
go. If you have an interesting story, something funny, something sad, something you want the world to know, please email us. We want you to share your experiences with us. We'll take these, we'll collect them, we'll do some episodes sometimes where we'll read them. So if you want to be anonymous, please just let us know. We won't read your name. If you want your name read, then we will. But send us those stories, comments to info@herturntotalkpodcast.com. And we also ask, if you like what you're hearing, please rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you.